Do you actually want to retire early, or do you just want the freedom to quit your job that drains your soul? Because those are two very different things. I remember when I was sitting in my office, I was sitting in my cubicle, and even though I kind of liked my job, I liked the career that I had chosen, I really would sit there and be like, dang, I really have to do this for the next 30 years. Now, like, again, I like that job, but it was exhausting, waking up super early to beat traffic and still be in traffic for like an hour, then working 8 hours a day, and then spending another hour and some change driving back home. It was exhausting. And I was like, do I really want to be doing this for 30 years? And most of us were taught to work hard, save a little bit, and hope everything works out. But there's actually an entire framework for reaching financial independence earlier. And you see it all over social media, and you'll see it where they're like, oh, I made millions of dollars and now I retired at age 30 or whatever. But what if I told you that there is a whole different way to retire early? And most of them do not require you to make $1 million. It is called FIRE. Today, we're talking about the five different types of FIRE that can help you buy back your time and build a life that actually makes sense for first gen Latinas who are trying to build wealth and want to help their families. What does FIRE actually mean? It is financial independence, retire early, and it is a whole movement. The core idea is super simple. Basically, build enough investments so that your money pays your living expenses. So you can work, but the goal is that you don't have to. Now, this means that you have to calculate your number that you are going to need. How much investment do you need to have to be able to pay off those living expenses? And so, how do you calculate that FIRE number? So, most FIRE strategies use the 4% rule, which basically is that you invest enough and build up enough investment in your investment accounts, for example, 401k, so that when you do reach that retirement age, you can withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio per year to live off of. Now, why 4%? Where did that number come from? Well, a financial planner, William Benjamin, I hope I said that correctly, created this rule in 1994. And he was a financial planner and he did all these calculations and kind of estimated of the average retirement age, which is 65. Based on that, how much you're going to need to live off of, but still have enough in your portfolio to still continue to build some money in there, right? To still grow. So that way you don't deplete all that money. And with his calculations, again, he did this estimate for 30 years. So at age 65, when you could start withdrawing, he basically estimated that it should last you at least 30 years based on this calculation. So now to get your FIRE number, you are going to multiply your annual expenses times 25. So for example, let's say after you look at your current expenses and you estimate, okay, I need to have at least $50,000 per year to pay things like my rent or my mortgage or my car or just food, electric, whatever, right? You do all that calculation and you estimate, hey, I need $50,000 for the year to be able to pay this off. So then you're going to multiply $50,000 by 25 and you are going to get 1.25 million. That means you need to have 1.25 million invested to reach that traditional FIRE. So this is where you get like the millions of how much you need to be able to retire. And so when you hear 1.25 million, like that kind of sounds like such a huge number. It sounds like a lot. But let me tell you, before you panic, remember that I mentioned that there are five different types of FIRE, and a lot of those are more realistic that you can actually achieve faster, but it really just depends which type. First, let's talk about lean FIRE. Lean fire, it is the minimalistic version of the whole fire movement. This is where you just keep it simple. The goal is to simplify your lifestyle and lower your living expenses. And the idea is to keep it around 25 to $40,000 of living expenses per year. So you really want to just cover your basic living expenses. So, for example, let's say that after you reduced your expenses or whatever, you realize that, hey, I need $35,000. You multiply that by 25, and then you get $875,000, which is a big difference from the 1.25 million that we originally had in the traditional fire. And this makes it seem more achievable because you can reach this faster and you also have the flexibility to work. The issue is that because you are basically just covering the minimum living expenses, then you more than likely are going to have to supplement that, or you're just going to have to live in a very tight budget. But for some people, that's fine. Maybe they do just want to like not have to worry about their living expenses, and maybe they get like a part time or something for extra things like to go shopping or whatever, have that extra cash. But it's not very realistic for many Latinas because a lot of us are the retirement plan for our parents. I know I am. And so I kind of did a version of this, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because I do have to account that not only do I have to account for my living expenses, but I'm going to supplement my parents' living expenses when they retire. Now, on the other side of lean fire, you're going to have fat fire. And that's the opposite energy. You want to retire with the idea, the mindset that you want to live your best life. You're going to have a high luxurious lifestyle. You want to travel. You want to buy expensive things. I mean, you just want to enjoy life, right? In your retirement. And that is perfectly okay. Like, do you? And this is usually calculated, estimating that you're going to need about 100K or more per year, depending how luxurious you want to be. And so let's say you need $120,000 to live your life, to be able to travel, to be able to live in that bougie condo on the beach or whatever. You multiply by 25, and that's going to give you 3 million. So you need to have $3 million invested in your account so that way you can live that luxurious retirement life. The problem is that it can take longer to achieve, right? 875,000 versus 3 million. That's a big difference. And that means that you are more than likely going to need to have a higher income now. So that way you can contribute the maximum and be aggressively investing, but it's still doable. Now, the next one is the barista fire, which is perfect for Latinas, perfect for like me. This is where you reach like partial financial independence. Your investments, it's kind of similar to kind of lean, but a little bit extra, where you are covering just your basics, making sure that you have a roof over your head, transportation, food, and electric, and all that. So, again, you're covering the basics, but you are planning to work part time. And this is what I'm basically doing. I ended up really reducing my living expenses, paying off any debt. I still don't have a car because I still don't need one. We both work from home, my husband and I, but my husband is still, has a job, and I get to just, do the podcast and invest in real estate and all that. So everything basically takes care of themselves. And especially with my real estate investments, I've gotten to a point where just that money, I just reinvest it, and that just gets taken care of by themselves. And then I get a little money from the military. And then again, my husband still has a job. And so now we're going to work on his. So this is a great option to kind of have a little bit of both. So, for example, let's say we need $60,000 in annual expenses. That's how much it costs to pay our bills and stuff. But our investments only cover 35,000 of those living expenses. You could still have reached fire the barista way. and then just need to cover the difference of the $25,000. And this is still great because this means that you have less stress of having to scramble to figure out how to pay most of your living expenses. Now you could go get a part-time job at an ice cream shop or just some other chill job. You don't have to worry about having a high salary job that's stressful and just working super hard. You have that flexibility now. And you don't have that pressure of having to save millions. But of course, you are still dependent on some supplemental income like a job. But still, this is a great option. The next one is Coast Fire. And this is one of the most underrated strategies. And this is when you see a good option for younger people, like people in their 20s or even, like closer to their 30s. You have time on your side, and this is when you invest very aggressively early in life. And again, this is great for like younger people that are like in their 20s, right after they graduate college and get their first high earning job. This is a great option for them because usually you have less responsibilities and you are able to take on more risk. So you just put everything you can in your investment account and invest aggressively. And you basically invest until you grow enough where it compounds by the 30 years. You know you're going to hit that mark. Let's say you want to be Fat Fire and you need the 3 million. You invest a whole bunch at the beginning until you hit that mark where you're like, okay, now that let's say 100,000, in the next 30 years, it's going to reach 3 million. So now you invest until you hit that $100,000 mark, and then you just coast. You're just chill. You just let that money sit there and, for the next 30 years. And so when you retire, it does hit that 3 million, but you didn't have to continuously invest throughout those years. And so basically, once you hit that mark, then you just worry about paying your living expenses because you already took care of your investments. Your retirement is good to go. So it's a great strategy, but it can be tricky because, of course, it requires discipline early. And usually, I know me when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't very disciplined and I definitely didn't know about investing or anything like that. But if you can get into it early, had I known this back then, I definitely would have done that. And then I would have been just chilling right now. And the other thing is that, of course, you're going to need a high salary to be able to have that extra income to invest. And the last one is my favorite. It is real estate fire. Now, when you think of investments, you usually think about the stock market, right? Your 401k, Roth IRAs, things like that. But there is another strategy to reach fire, and that is with real estate. And that's what I am personally pursuing. Yes, I'm still investing in the stock market, right? Because you always want to diversify. But I'm really going hard with real estate because there's a lot of perks on top of reaching fire. And so instead of just relying on my stock investments, I'm also building a portfolio of cash flowing rental properties. And my goal is to buy enough rental properties to where the cash flow covers my monthly living expenses. And then I can reach fire even faster because this is money that I can start using right now. And I don't have to wait till I'm able to pull from my 401k. I could actually, buy enough properties that have enough cash flow already and then reach financial independence already. And the cool thing is that you don't need to have a very large portfolio to be able to achieve fire with real estate. You just have to be strategic. So for example, let's say on a monthly basis, you need $5,000 to cover your expenses. That means you have to build a portfolio that's going to give you a cash flow of that $5,000. And by cash flow, I mean after the expenses of maintaining those properties like property manager, mortgage, maintenance, things like that. So from the rental income, you subtract all those expenses and whatever's left over, that's your cash flow. And again, you don't need a big portfolio. So for example, you could buy 2 duplexes and they give you 1,500 in cash flow. You have a triplex that's 2,500. And, in one single family home, maybe it was your first house and you turn it into a rental and now it's giving you $1,000 in cash flow. That gives you the 5,000 that you need. And you basically just have like four properties, right? And you could do like a mixture of that. And again, the thing that I love is that you start building cash flow sooner. You have real assets and you get tax advantages from those properties. And again, you don't have to wait to withdraw at the age of 60. And so, again, this is what I am doing. I am on duplex number 4, and I'm going to continue to grow until I have enough to cover all my expenses, including my husband's, and extra cash to be able to support my parents in their retirement. If that is something that you are interested in doing, you want to reach fire with rental properties, you could start with my free 5-day crash course to get started. It will be linked down below. And I'm also creating a community of Latina investors. I'm doing it through school. So I'm building a school community. I'll have that link down below. You could join for free. And that's where I'm going to also talk about more real estate investing. So if that's something that you are interested, go check that out. Okay, so there is a few caveats with this whole fire movement. And the first one is with the calculation of how you come up with your fire number. And so I want to go a little bit deeper because obviously a few things have changed from 1994. So with the 4% rule, this is meant to be that you withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio in that first retirement year. And afterwards, you are supposed to adjust for inflation. So you're going to have to be tracking inflation so that way you can adjust your withdrawals. So, for example, let's say that inflation is at 3%. I think it's getting up there right now. I think we're like at 2 point something. So you're going to be like, oh, wow. Okay. So now inflation has gone up 3%. Then you are going to have to increase what you withdraw for that year by that 3%. So in total, you're going to have to withdraw 7% of your investment portfolio in that year to account for the rise in living costs. Because, I mean, you see that right now happening, that you're going to have to adjust because everything is so much more expensive now. The other thing is that you might have a mentality right now. Let's say you want to do lean fire, but things might change in the future. Maybe you calculated your mortgage. Remember, most mortgages are 30-year mortgages. So you need to remember that when you are calculating your fire number, and this is where like sometimes people kind of get overwhelmed or they get a wrong fire number because they account for like their car note, their mortgage and stuff like that. But by those 30 years, you should have paid off your mortgage, right? Assuming you didn't go and later in life buy another property, like maybe bought a nicer house or whatever, right? And if you do, then just adjust your fire number when you do. Just remember that, keep that in your head. But that might go away in those 30 years. So your fire number might be actually less. So just remember to recalculate as you go through life. It's easy to just like go right now and be like, oh, wow, I need that $875,000. But actually, I might need a little bit less because I don't have to account for my mortgage. The other thing is don't forget to include life happening, right? So you may in the future decide that, hey, I actually want to buy a vacation home. So now I have to think of a mortgage there. Or, hey, I want to help my grandchildren with college. And so expenses are going to be higher. So again, just take that into account and recalculate. Now, I know you may be thinking, like, how am I supposed to reach financial independence and retire early with everything that is going on? I mean, gas is going up because of everything that's going on in the Middle East. And then with tariffs and everything has been just like, this economy has just been all over the place. So our grocery bill has been higher. Everything's more expensive. So on top of like, higher housing costs and all the political chaos that's been happening, like our wallets have been feeling it. And so it might seem like unachievable at this moment, but do what you can. Like check your budget, see what you can contribute. Remember, anything is better than nothing that you could put in your investment portfolio. And I also want you to remember that, we are not the only generation that has had to deal with, some version of economic chaos. I know my parents, they had to go through the whole 2008 crisis, right? And many of our parents lived through that as well. And everything, that went on at that time, and so they lived through it, they survived. And so, what I want to say is like, let's combine their resilience and the financial knowledge that we have now to build wealth and have financial success. And I'm not saying it's not going to be an uphill battle. It definitely is going to be, especially right now. But at one point, we're going to get through this. But financial independence is still possible. Again, it's not going to be overnight. This is a long term game, long term plan, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Again, do what you can, poco a poco. We can take a step towards that goal. And then next thing you know, you're going to wake up and realize that, hey, I have the ability to finally quit this job that I've been hating. Or now I don't have to spend my time stuck in traffic and have my time to myself and buy back my time or do something that I'm passionate about. I don't have to be stuck at this job anymore because now you have reached that point where you have bought your freedom back. And with that, I will leave you. If this episode helped you understand the FIRE movement, send it to another Latina, send it to, your friend, to your amiga, to your mom, to your sister, whatever. And don't forget to like and follow the podcast, the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and share this episode so others can also find this podcast. Don't forget to follow me on all my social medias listed in the show notes below, where you can also find resources to help you in your financial journey. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, you can find that information in the show notes. Other than that, thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.